female entrepreneurs turned besties share on life, business, and the journey through the mess. Join their community with every new episode for connection, education, a few laughs, and the hype energy like a bathroom full of drunk girls at a bar. It's okay.
We're your friends now!
Hey.
Hey everybody, it's Biz!
Hey, it's Katie.
And hey guys, it's Ashleigh, and welcome to today's episode of We're Your Friends Now. Today we are touching on a topic that I think we've danced around in a lot of episodes, which is about how do you decide if you need to say no to something? And this is something that I know all three of us struggle with. We are people pleasers, we are big thinkers, and we really enjoy taking opportunity when it's in front of us. So it's hard to say no to something, especially when you're an entrepreneur and you are somebody who's in charge of your time. You feel like you have more hours in the day than you actually do because you're not tied to a desk for your salary from, 8 to 5. You're like, well, all day I can just do whatever I need to for whatever opportunities in front of me. And it's so difficult. So difficult to control.
Also, most people who are entrepreneurs, especially in real estate, have some level of ADHD. Naturally, not great with time management or understanding, how long it'll take. Not because we don't understand, but also whatever. There's a whole lot in that. And so then you add on all the opportunities and the FOMO and stuff. It's a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot. I don't know. Biz, do you feel FOMO in the mortgage world and with real estate and opportunities that get presented to you?
Oh my God. Yeah. This is wild. I feel so conflicted in prepping for this episode because like I was saying, right as we started recording, I don't think we got a sign on over there, but I was like, I'm really bad at this. But I, which I know you shouldn't say, right? But it's something that I've yet to master.
Yes.
And it's becoming blaringly obvious at this point in my life that I have said yes to a lot of things. And it's cool when you were saying earlier, you said being people pleasers. And I realize, in my current stage of self-help and therapy, that the person that I'm trying to please is myself.
Oh.
And then I put a lot of big dreams and big pressure on my shoulders because I want to have a really big life, right?
Yeah.
And with that, so kind of walking that back. So it's crazy because I sit there and I think oh, wow, I'm really bad at this. I say yes to everything because I want it all the time. But then whenever I am looking through these specific decision-making models that you found, which I'm really excited to dig into, I realize I do that multiple times a day and triaging what needs my attention.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting that my knee-jerk reaction is that oh my God, I suck at this. And but then whenever you really piece into it, I'm like, wait, I'm actually pretty good at this stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see how this conversation bridges that gap, to be honest.
It's funny that you say that because I have the opposite reaction. I am so good at saying no. It is so easy for me to be I am constantly no is a complete sentence. I can tell you exactly. It is so easy for me to say no, except for when it's something that because I have my little filter, right? But then when it's something I want to do, it aligns with my mission and it sounds fun or blah, blah, blah. And I think, oh, I've got this system and that's all good. And then all of a sudden I look up one day and I've said yes to 25 things because they all sounded so fun. And, I've said no to a lot in the process. But once I started reading through it, I was like, well, I'm really good at saying no to things that I'm not interested in. And then the things I am, maybe not so much.
Oh, totally. I think I was last week or something, Katie, I texted you and I was like, executing an idea is just not as fun as having the idea. And we talk about it a lot that I get sucked into, I love ideas and I just loathe executing things. And one thing I learned this week is that it's not so much getting sucked into the detail of the work isn't always as fun as the expected outcome or the initial rush of the idea or whatever it is. But I realize I get anxiety once things are in motion over whether or not they will work. A lot of times I can have an idea and be like, I know this would work. I know this could be successful. And I'm too scared to be the person to fail with it. And that was a real hardcore
Interesting.
revelation.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, it was one of those moments where you're like, I'm learning more about myself than I really intended to at this stage of life. I thought I'd like already know who I am and all these things.
Psych, bitch.
Yeah.
Well, that's why we learn tools to re-examine ourselves daily in yoga in our
Yeah.
I think one of the things for me too is like I and like I know I've talked about this a lot too. I am also pretty good at like saying yes or saying no to things or weighing options or whatever. And also, I still have a hard time grasping reality of my current capacity because I know I'm capable of so much more.
Yeah.
And so not only am I saying no to an opportunity, I feel like I'm letting myself down because I'm not doing all of the things that I know I could do. And so every time I have to say no to something, it's like, oh, okay. And also, you could do it, but you just suck right now.
Like accepting the seasons of your life and like motherhood with young children, it's a different diminished capacity because you're like, I had 2 hours of sleep last night. Like my mental capacity cannot and should not be what it used to be. And that's frustrating. And then you're like, we'll get through this season. You get out of that. And then like Biz and I have slightly older kids who sleep and we're lucky enough to have that back. But now it's like, they've got more social events and like
extracurriculars.
Yeah, the extracurriculars. Yeah. And so now you're like, okay, well, normally I could be back at my computer and doing XYZ, but now instead I need to be present for my kid and do this. And it's like, I thought I was going to get out of the diminished capacity season and it just evolved into a different form.
That's like life, I feel like, though, right? Like that's what I'm finding. And that's where I feel so wise in my 30-something years, right? Is just realizing that it's always going to have some type of suck, like with it.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
Yeah. That's why I think it's important to reevaluate constantly. And that's what I think is cool about breaking out these different processes is, just putting some framework around things that we may already be doing.
Yeah.
It helps me anyway.
Yeah, and I think so we're going to talk a little bit about how we think we currently are evaluating the yes and no's, but then we're going to go over, there's this little like sort of infographic that I found that is laying out 6 different ways to evaluate something and whether or not you should say no to it. So Katie, when you are faced with an idea that you've come up with, not necessarily somebody suggesting something to you, just one of those opportunities that you've come up with, like, hey, this would be a really good idea to start this. How do you go about deciding whether or not you should pursue it or not?
Great question. I usually overthink it for a long time and then all of a sudden one day just go full send on like I'm doing this. But if you break down the thought process, so for me, the initial thing for everything that I do is going to be, right, does it align with my mission or further my mission, or is it just fun? Either of those things are fine. And then it starts getting into like, logistically, can I put this on my plate? Like, and so that starts a process of how much time is involved in this. When could I complete it? Realistically, is it something that I could complete? Who will I let down if I don't complete it? Then I start talking to Brett about, like the idea and what it would entail and if we want to pursue it together. And then I start talking to other people to hype me up. And then all of a sudden I'm like, great, let's go. And then I stress.
And then I stress.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. What is the kind of, have you seen a recurring theme where the idea stops and you're like, oh, this idea is not going to come to fruition for whatever reason, where like it tends to be, this is where I say no?
I would say in this season of my life, so things that I come up with, if it ends up being something where like I have to do, there's a lot of legwork to get it going. I just truly like like this very current season of my life, I was just telling y'all, we had literally every winter sickness that you could imagine. Then we had a sleep regression, and we've had like growth spurt after growth spurt. And so it's not only am I not sleeping, but like Connor is super attached to me because he doesn't feel good, and he's not going to sleep until 10:30 at night, and he's waking up at 3 a.m. And when he's up, we don't have childcare. So when he's up, he wants to be physically on me and playing with me. And there's just like, unless I can complete my task in a text message in the Target parking lot, like it's probably just not going to happen.
Yeah. Totally. So time capacity seems to be the major defining factor for you right now.
Right now, I would say, yeah. And then if it's like something that somebody else presents to me, I don't know if you want that answer too. I mean, it's pretty easy for me to like, can I commit to this on a consistent basis? Because there may be like, not only do we have that, but we also have like, Brett has a couple businesses. Brett has things that he's involved in, like there's just so much. And every decision we make has to be a joint decision because it's both of us sacrificing time to do it.
Cool. What about you, Biz?
How do I make a decision?
Yeah.
If something's a good idea? I don't know. It's really different. I make a lot of decisions in my head, if I should say yes or no to things, and I don't consult a whole lot of people. And it's probably how I get in trouble with it all. And so for me, it's really more of the list of like, do I need to do this? And how important is the need? Should I do this? And then can I do this? And then I'm not going to do it. Is basically what is really how it boils down to me. But I feel like responsible, like I have to do a lot of things. And it really took me a long time to realize that I was actually choosing to do all of the things that I was doing, to even get to a point to realize that I could say no.
Okay, but can we also talk about, because I think this ties into that decision fatigue is a real thing.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you don't stop to realize that you're making all of these decisions. You just like quickly move forward towards the path of least resistance. And this gets me in trouble too, right? Like, I love connecting with people and I love learning. I mean, I'm dealing with this right now, right? Like somebody came to me and presented an opportunity, and I didn't even have like the capacity to sit down and be like, okay, realistically, what would this look like, and go through the system. I was like, yes, I'm always open to a conversation. If I'm not the person, I'll just find the person. And I really didn't think I was the person. And then like all of a sudden, whoops, they're checking references literally today. So like my decision fatigue kind of led me into, because I was like, I can't make this decision right now. I'll just say yes and figure it out along the way.
Oh, totally.
This is not recommended, although I think this one is playing out pretty well. But like, I think it's not the best way to do it. And it is something that I do. It does happen.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's kind of along the lines of, saying yes to collecting the information, not necessarily saying yes to the opportunity. Yeah. So, at the end of all of this, you could have gone through all these conversations. They could check references. It could be a great opportunity that you both agree would fit, and then you walk away. And that's still an option.
Yeah. Well, and the beauty of this is like, and this moment in my life, right, is that, they were like, what made you interested? Like, what are you looking for in a role that made you think this was a good fit? I was like, I'm not looking for a role. Like, this was brought to me. I wasn't looking. And I was like, here's what my life looks like. Here's how it's probably going to look in 3 months. Until then, this is what it is. Like, here's what I can offer you now. Here's what I can probably offer you in the future. I'm like, there's no capacity. It's just a hot mess up front. And if you want to take that on, then like, we're on the same page. And, like you're saying, I did kind of reserve the right. I just told them, I was like, I agreed to this because I like you. I respect you. I like your business and what you're doing. I wanted to find out more, see if I can match somebody else up. And if it's me, we'll talk. But like, I basically, collecting information.
Yeah. It's interesting that, like, Biz, when you're saying the first step was like, and I know this was probably just a gut, but you said the first step is, do I need to do this? And then should I do this? And then can I do this? And I think it's interesting that that was your order of operations, because I think I'm backwards. I think the very first is, can I? Like, can I? I don't
Yeah,
care if
that's what
I
I'm saying.
want to
Yeah,
or
but that's
should. I always start
that's
with,
why I'm saying I'm screwed up. Like, don't do it that way,
I was
because
just going to say, I don't think my way's
no,
good.
no, I think it's screwed up the way that I do it, because I am like setting myself up to like have to hustle crazy hard and like push, right? Like, do I need to do this? And it's really that root of like, who establishes the need?
Yeah.
And then realizing that it's ultimately myself that's establishing the need most of the time. Then it cycles down to should. But it's like that first filter right there is like vital for where I'm at in my life.
Yeah.
Is like, is this even a decision that I have the right to be making?
Yeah.
Kind of. Because I feel so much duty and like indebtedness to my family.
Yeah.
Right. As the breadwinner, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess so. Like, I have like a responsibility to them first and foremost that comes beyond myself. So like that's where I think it really goes. But then the should, and then the can, because I know I could learn anything. It's just a matter of if I should put my energy towards it. So that's why I have it in that order.
Yeah.
But maybe it's not unhealthy. I don't know. When I explain it that way, it doesn't sound so
It
bad.
doesn't.
Biz, do you know your disc profile?
I'm actually very well balanced.
Like
believe it
across
or
the
not.
board?
Mm-hmm.
Ashleigh,
Yeah.
what's yours? I think I know what yours is, but what's yours?
So my natural state is a high D, and
Yeah.
my adaptive state is even across the board.
Okay, so that makes sense, because you're very quickly, can I do this? Can I not? Because none of the other details matter to you if you can't do it. It doesn't matter if it's a good opportunity if you can't do it.
Well, it's
that
funny,
makes a lot of sense.
I almost want to take it back and say my first instinct is how, not can.
Interesting. Okay.
So it's almost
wait. I just pulled it back up. I literally, because I just took it again not that long ago, and I am really equal across the board, but my C, I do not have much C in me. In my natural style at all. Yeah.
That's not a shock. So, because I think that right, it's just interesting to me, like how different each, and it makes sense in everything that we're saying, because like I'm a high I, high C, and so my initial is like, is it something I love and does it make me excited? And then there's 85,000 questions that follow that before I get to the point where I am able to consider making a decision. Biz, you have like a very legit process of like this, and this, which makes a lot, like you have an order that you go in and how you consider, and it kind of weighs all things. And Ashleigh is a quick like, yes, no, I'm going to consider this more, or it's not worth my brain space. That's just really interesting to me. It's kind of how we talked about, remember, when we said our different personalities and how our response to like news or an announcement or something, and I needed to feel it, Biz needed to like analyze it. That's more of like a high S thing, and you were just like bam. like you wanted to think it, she wanted to analyze, and I just am
like yeah sure. Well, and it's like I don't know how yet, and I'll probably figure it out, and if I can't figure out how, then that's when I know it's a no. And that is where I get myself into troubles. We were talking about this, I think, like 3 weeks ago, is that I was saying that I suddenly looked up and realized that, well, I am not maxed out on my time in my day. I have overcommitted to things mentally that, like, these are ideas I'm working on getting off the ground, various business like different things, and they require brain space and time, and like even things where it's like I have to post on social media, I have to spend the time coming up with the idea, I have to spend the time executing that idea, I have to spend the bandwidth, heaven forbid something goes and viral, and it sounds like such a good problem to have, but it really does take up a lot of my mental capacity. And so I was really frustrated with myself because I was like, I have time. I am at my house with access to a computer. I can do more. And I was getting so frustrated, feeling like I don't understand why I can't get anything done. It's because I didn't say no to enough stuff. So that's kind of what inspired when I saw this little handy dandy infographic that
Yes, let's talk about it because it's like the coolest thing.
Yeah. So the first one, a lot of our listeners will probably be familiar with, and I know all three of us will be, but it's always a good reminder, is the Pareto principle, which states that 80% of the efforts are going to yield 20% of the results. Did I say that right? No, it's the other way
Yes.
around. Top 20% of your efforts that you focus on will yield the 80% of the results that you want. So when we get lost in the sauce of all the things that ultimately don't really matter, like when you spend 3 hours deciding on Canva whether your font should be cursive or not, that is where you're getting lost in the sauce. So that's the
Have you
Pareto
been watching me? Are you in my house?
And this is like Katie the other day. I did a broadcast and I was interviewing a male guest speaker, and I left our background all pink and purple. She's like, just so you know, you can change. And I was like, honestly, it occurred to me and I decided it wasn't worth the effort.
I love that so much.
So the Pareto principle is a really good go-to when you're thinking about business. In my mind, I don't think it's as applicable when you're just kind of thinking about like life decisions. But if you're trying to decide about whether or not you should be the person to perform a specific task within your business, the Pareto principle is really, really handy. Katie, do you use this principle like actively, or is it pretty passive in your experience?
Hang on, I'm pulling the thing back up because while I did look at it, I don't remember which one is which. Okay, so
I know,
80
I pulled
20.
it back up too. Yeah, the 80-20. So I do this one all the time. This is one of the ones that I'm saying in my work. So Ashleigh, I know you were kind of getting stumbled on that 80-20 a second ago. And it's because I think we've talked so much about it from the opposite perspective, from the leverage angle, that it's confusing. So the one way to look at it is 20% of your activities produce 80% of your results. But then you peel off the other 80% for someone else to do. So that way it increases your productivity that much.
Yes.
So I have been laser focused on this for like the past 6 months in my business. And so I am all about some leverage. If it's not something that I personally have to do, then I am getting somebody else to do it. That's where I'm at right now.
I really like that, but it's hard because leverage costs money.
Yeah.
And that is
it does.
scary.
And that's the other flip side of the coin, and that's the beauty of it, right? Is it's a multiple accountability, because they then in turn hold me accountable, right? Continuing to make it rain. And so it's tough when you're not doing it all yourself. But that is the way you have to operate, right? Is whenever you're doing it on your own. So it just comes back to tracking. And I think I'm surprised neither of us has brought that up yet, considering how important it is and how much like all of us do it naturally at this point, but it was such a learned skill.
Yeah.
But tracking is like vitally important to be able to have data, so that way your feelings don't get in the way. Stupid feelings.
Who has those? What about you, Katie? Do you like actively use that principle to make your decisions?
Yeah, mostly because I constantly have to cut out like 80% of the things that I want to do.
Yeah.
Because realistically, like I know that I can't put it on my plate, right? And so I have to focus on my top, like I'm constantly, what's my top 20 in this moment? What's my top 20 that's going to help me and my family today, tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, etc.
Yeah.
I don't use leverage as much because I am very used to being leverage, and I enjoy seeing all parts of it. And right now it's a little difficult because my schedule is so crazy. Things change on the fly. And so having leverage is really difficult to be like, it would just be it's almost like more work to just constantly be like, I need you to do this instead. I need you to do like, you know,
I get
it
that
just doesn't make
too.
sense.
Yeah. Like what that reminds me of is a lot of people tell me, oh, you should have groceries delivered. It saves you a ton of time. And for me, it saves me 0 time. I have to still do all the work of putting everything into the app and whatever. And then when the grocery shopper is there, they're like, this is out and I don't have a good substitute. And is this okay? And it's so frustrating because then I end up having to go back to the store anyways to piecemeal together what I need. And it's just so inconvenient. So sometimes that idea of leverage just doesn't pan out the way ideally it would. Like a true personal shopper would 100% save me time, but I'm not there. I'm not at that level of my life. So
Yeah.
currently getting that leverage just doesn't make any sense. Like you said, where it's like, I have to babysit you while you shop. And yes, you know, when you have like little kids that are sick or something like that, obviously that helps, but my kids are old enough they can suffer through it. So yeah, it's interesting. I feel like with the Pareto principle, I'm always changing when I'm like, oh, these are my top 20 and we're going to talk about this some more, but I think it's because I am in a weird season where I'm not confused. I see what I want and I can't get there yet. And so it's this messy middle people talk about where like I need to continue to do XYZ activities, but those aren't going to get the results that I want. And so I have to start doing these. And it's just very disjointed and unorganized and exhausting. So
you said you have to start doing what? You said you don't want to do, or they're not producing like those things, so you have to start doing.
Yeah. So for like example, you know, I don't want to be the person focusing on real estate sales anymore. I am looking at some business opportunities that are more about generating higher levels of scale of business for other people. And that will produce a whole lot more income for me. But the activities that I need to focus on to escalate those businesses are not producing income right now. So right now I still have to execute the nitty gritty of real estate sales, which is a huge drain on my time. But I have to because it's what pays my bills. And so it's just a really disjointed phase to be in where you're like,
well, you're transitioning.
Yeah.
And
I think it's also really hard. Like we said, you're a high D. And so knowing like where you want to be or understanding like what the end goal will be or what the end product will be, going through the phase of like, I still need to sell. I still need to do this because it's my immediate moneymaker. I know this other thing will make money. It's not there yet. Like that's such an emotional drain on you.
Yeah.
I think I'm speculating.
Oh yeah.
Because you want to get to the next page. You want to get to the next chapter. And I think that that's a natural thing, high D or not, because most people want to be at their goals. But I think especially for you, because that is just a tendency of high Ds of like, that is especially stressful, draining, and like, it's not exciting. It's not motivating.
And it really, it makes your day so like all over the place because I'm like, I can spend 1 hour here, 1 hour there. And it's just like, you feel like you're only moving the ball, you know, like a tiny, tiny bit at a time. And so you just get so frustrated. And
I think it's also, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and I'm like, if somebody were to reach out to me and they're like, hey, can you help me sell? I'm like, oh, absolutely. Thank you so much for reaching out to me. So, you know, like I still love helping all the people that I know. But it's like that nitty gritty of, you know, somebody reaches out and they're like, hey, I need advice about this. And I help them go through all these questions and everything. And then they're like, well, never mind, we're not selling. And I'm like, oh, I don't have the patience I once had for that part of the business.
You need a win. And like, that is also just like really tough too. And I love that. Like, this is actually in light of this conversation though. When do you like, how do you actually decide your energy allocation every day like this?
Yeah.
Like, that's what we're getting at, right? Is the nitty-gritty of it.
Yeah.
Because yeah. And so is it a monetary sliding scale? Because like at what point do you decide, all right, I'm going ham on this because of that energy? Like, are you tracking it at all? Like your hours, like what you were just saying, like your schedule? I'm just curious. It's a lot. Yeah.
It's so hard because I have, like I said yes to so many things for a variety of reasons. Some of them are, I'm passionate about this. Some of them are, this makes my life easier in some ways. And then it evolved into its own little time suck. And then like I started substituting for a school because I'm trying to get my kids into it. And so some days it's just an entire wrench thrown in where I'm gone for 6 hours substituting Latin. And like there's, there's no monetary, I mean, they pay me to do it, but it's not monetarily worth my time compared to what I earn otherwise. But I just don't like and it sounds so weird to be like, I don't have a choice, but I don't. And it's very complicated to explain to people. But so yeah, it's really hard. It's really disjointed. Substituting comes up very last minute. Sometimes they're texting me that day and it's like, if I have an appointment I'm committed to, I can't go. Otherwise I try to go. And so that shifts my entire day constantly. And sometimes I've got weeks where, they asked me to show up for 3 days and then the teacher that I was going to sub for is suddenly doesn't need me anymore. And so all of a sudden I've got a day with no appointments and it's like, oh, okay. So now I can really look at where should my energy go? So no, it's chaos right now to track. And it's just like, how do I fill the hours as I go? That's truly how they're decided right now.
So speaking from experience of being in that frazzle spot, the tracking it as honest as it is helped me because it grounded me in what was actually going on versus the overwhelming feeling that I was constantly stuck in and like couldn't sleep. And that's like the big thing for me is whenever I start to lose sleep, I know I need to sit with myself again.
Yeah.
So yeah, because you do. Yeah. Wow, man.
Yeah.
I bet being inside your head is really exhausting.
Yeah. And I mean, it's hard because if I were to track like what's returning, I would get rid of pretty much everything except for real estate sales. So that's what's super frustrating about it is you're like, I'm literally spending money on all these other things, spending time. They have zero returns, but I can see the 1 year from now returns. So it's a lot.
That's cool.
Yeah. All right.
I'm like, that's really interesting that your perspective, your ability to forecast out like that, because you remember like when I was freaking out, when I was transitioning and going through a season of that. And I was like, I don't like this feeling. And y'all were like, give it 6 months. And it's funny. The last retreat I was at, they were like, give it a year. And I'm like, oh God, a year. Oh, like, I don't know about that. Like 6 months already feels so long.
Yeah, I like the 6 months because of that, because I feel like saying a whole year is so much harder to commit to than 6 months at a time.
Yeah, I wonder if some of that too has to do with our age. Because I mean, like, not dissing like the wise older women that I was with that told me a year, but like a year feels like so long. And it also, you know what I mean? But it's kind of because like you gauge it by your kids.
That's what I was just gonna say. Every time I get older, time goes faster. So I could totally see by the time I'm in my 50s, I'm like, just give it a year. Like that's no time at all. Whereas right now, like 3 months is fast.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay.
Next one is the Eisenhower matrix, which is also known as the, I don't know where my Australian accent just came from, known as the urgent important matrix. So this is supposed to efficiently prioritize options by looking at urgency and importance. So it's got 4 squares ranking urgent, important, not urgent. And you've got your yes square is only if that thing aligns as both urgent and important. Everything else is a no and should be delegated or not done at all.
Yeah, no, I don't do this one at all.
I
I struggle with
it.
even relating this to this. Like, I
I
struggle
am-
with it.
Okay, I am obsessed with this.
Really?
Yeah, and it's because so the team that I used to be on, we had a morning meeting every single day, and we had to address this. And so we had like 17 agents or something on this one team, and everybody could only have one urgent, important thing, right? And so it helped our structure because we knew the team had to cover the important so that we didn't get many things to the urgent. And then the urgent and important things we talked about in the meeting. But we had 17 agents and then a bunch of admins, and it was a 12-minute meeting. Each person only got one thing that they could talk about. And it was so good for my understanding priorities and being able to look at a situation of like, is this urgent because I haven't had a conversation that I need to have, or I've dropped the ball somewhere, or somebody is making it feel urgent, but it's actually not. And so it helped me shift from like what is truly urgent and important, because not everything that seems urgent is urgent and important. And what doesn't matter at all and can be solved by like a 2-minute conversation. And then what are the important things that I know have to get done to keep things from being in that urgent and important. And so this is like a really good graph of how my brain works when I'm like, my days are super unpredictable. I don't have the option of consistency. And so this is such a helpful thing for me of like, okay, in this moment, I have this, and this that need to get done. What is urgent and important? Because that's probably the only thing that will get done. And then what's my plan for the others? Like, will I do them later, tomorrow? Can Brett help me? Or do I only think they're important because I was excited about it and it seemed fun, but it actually doesn't need to be done?
Yeah, I am right there with you because of that. When you have like the day-to-day disjointedness, that's how I'm executing things, right? When I'm trying to work on the website for the business, and in my head, I'm like, this needs to get done. I need it to get going. I want this launched. The urgency is on me. It's not actually hurting anybody else, to have it be delayed by a day because I couldn't get around to X, Y, and Z.
Yep.
There is a crux in time where you go, okay, look, you've been working on this website, your poor dad has been coding and you're like not done yet. Like, it's time. But it goes back to that. If I'm moving the ball forward a little bit, it sucks in my head because I'm like, I want this going. I want it successful. I want to be where I can see I can see the goal over there, and I want to be standing over there. And I have to just accept the little, what doesn't feel like a win, but is a win. Like, writing the FAQ section, that is a win, and it's not exciting. And most people would be like, okay, like, but it's a win when you're working on a lot of things. So I don't know. Now you've heard us say how we use it, Biz. Does it resonate more?
It does, in the sense of like, I use it rapid fire, but when I first was like prepping for this topic, it's hard to think of decision making that you do every day, right? Yeah. Like, I think about it like, am I sitting down and knowing if I'm going to say no to something?
Yeah.
But yeah, I do that, and it's comes to me in like negative examples, like where I made the wrong choice because I chose something else instead of that, and then like had a negative consequence. But I also am pulled in so many different directions at all times that, I mean, that's how I end up working 12-hour days, is just to tie up all of the loose ends with it. So, I mean, yeah, that's why this conversation is really timely for me, because it's really hard to realize that you have to say no to yourself.
Yeah.
For like things that you want to do.
Like washing my hair.
Hard. Huh?
I said like washing my hair. This is how I'm constantly like, I don't know when I wash my hair.
Katie's like, my hair is not on the urgent and important matrix yet. We'll revisit.
It will be tomorrow probably, but
yeah.
Yeah, I think
But I'm just thinking like big goals, like
Yeah.
stuff like again. So like, I mean, the way that y'all explain it, and Katie, I really love that you fleshed out that example all the way through, because I was thinking like, can I take this to my team?
Oh my gosh, Biz,
And
if you want
whatnot. But
offline, we can have a chat about how we structured those meetings. It was so helpful. And remember, on that team, I held many positions. So I was on every side of those conversations. And when I tell you that it helped me understand the people that I was helping so much better, and then having us establish what those standards were of like an understanding of this is urgent and important, this is not, like it was a great unifying thing for us. And our customer experience became so much better too, because we were all on the same page about everything. It was,
yeah,
so
I'm
I'm
trying to
super happy to
find
go through that with you.
yeah, I'm trying to find some structure to our morning meetings more so than what we've got.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. Yeah, so I appreciate you breaking all that out. But it's yeah. So no, so I'm just chewing on it all.
Yeah.
Just chewing on it all. So
Okay, the
yeah, I
third
do
one.
more of it.
I am a big
Yep.
fan of this third one in combination with something else. So I'll get into that in a second. But in general, it's a very corporate way to look at running a business, which is so unintuitive to most entrepreneurs because they're like, I broke free from corporate. I don't want those chains. And a lot of times this actually will set you free. So, number 3 is using OKRs, which is objectives and key results. It's basically having a clear, achievable goal for the business or for your life or whatever it is. And then having key results. Like, how do you know that these results are working towards your achievable goal? If your goal is to sell 50 wedding cakes by the end of the year, what key results along the way will let you know you're on track? So that is a good way to look at, should I say yes to this? If somebody is like, hey, I really want to hire you to make cupcakes for my kid's birthday, and you're like, well, that would get me money and it would get me exposure. Is it going to move me closer to my key result? No, probably not. None of the people at kid's birthday party, they're all probably married, so none of them are going to be ordering wedding cakes. So really, it's probably not going to help. So I need to say no to this opportunity. That to me is such a good example of how to use OKRs and then use them in combination with KPIs, which is key performance indicators. So those are the little things every day where you're like, if I want to sell 50 wedding cakes, I need to talk to 10 brides every week. So every day my goal is to reach out to 2 of them or whatever, like little things you can do, the actions you can control every day to achieve your objectives. That is my favorite way to win whatever business you're working in. It applies to like literally everything. And I would say, I'm going to guess both of you use this in at least a goal setting manner, right? I know, Biz, you talk a lot about like goal setting is important to you.
Yeah, well, because you got to know where you're going. That Katie taught me that. You got to know where you're going, so you know what to say yes and no to, so you know where to put your energy.
Yeah.
And it's and on that note too, like just sidebar on goal setting, it was wild to me. This retreat that I was just at, like I was in a room full of like 30 women that, I mean, I am such a baby minnow, but at the same time deserve to be in the room with it. And one of the assignments that we had was to literally sit down and goal set for 15 minutes straight. And and it was so blaringly obvious to me. It like struck me that is what the leaders of our organization knew was the most valuable way for us to spend. And then we did it the next day. So we spent 30 minutes in silence.
Dang.
Just silently holding each other accountable to goal setting, because they know that it's something that gets put off all the time. So it is vitally important. But yeah, but this is also why I hired an integrator, is so that way he can think through this that way. And I don't need to, and someone who's more experienced than me to do that. And honestly, Ashleigh, I like when you were explaining this, like I was thinking, I was like, man, that's such a strength of yours that you can see the anthill being made in one like grain of dirt at a time. because it is really important to just stay on track and do those things. And like, I struggle. And like, when I'm in that spot, it's like a mantra that I create, that it's like, my experience tells me this is okay. My experience tells me this is okay. Like, you know, and you just keep going. But and I think that's honestly why I end up saying yes so much, is because I'm so uncomfortable in that space. Like, I just am uncomfortable there. So yeah,
Interesting.
I don't think I do it very effectively. I know how to, but it's not something, it's a tool in my tool belt, but I have to read the owner's manual every time I pull it out.
Yeah. Do you track key performance indicators, like very specific conversations a day?
Yes.
Or
I don't track getting there, but yes. I have requested from my integrator the way to track my conversations weekly, because I need that for myself. I have it to track everyone else. I don't have it tracking me, and it's driving me nuts. So yeah, but I'm a data person, man. Numbers don't lie. They don't have feelings. They don't whatever. They give me so much comfort. Like,
yeah. What about Katie?
So I like this one a lot. I had actually never seen this model written out like this, so I really like it. To me, it relates a lot to, like I was saying earlier, about my filter of, does this further my mission? Replace mission with goal, right? Like, this is the thought process that I have when I approach a decision. We all know I love KPIs. Same reason as Biz. Like, there's no feelings. It's not personal. It is literally just numbers, data, statistics, whatever. I like to be able to see patterns, and you know, I'm the one who constantly am like literally like 3 times a day looking at our podcast analytics, and you know, like I love all of it. And it's funny because I like this role that I had previously. My job was to come in and break the systems and rebuild a new system. And part of rebuilding anything is understanding what the KPIs need to be. Like, what's important to track, what's important to measure, because we can track a whole bunch of stuff that literally makes no difference in our business. And I love this, and I'll preach it all day long. And then because of like the season of life I'm in, I realized I hadn't been doing it a whole lot. And so I'm in Bold right now. I'm going, for people who don't know, it's like a 7-week intensive course that Keller Williams offers. And it's geared towards real estate agents, but I grabbed like a whole bunch of operations people, and I was like, we're going to take this together. And it was so funny because you have to, like, in the first week, write down goals and the things that you are going to track. And like and so it was really interesting to me to think about, like, okay, well, in this, like, with everything that I have going on right now and some changes that are coming up, what should I be tracking, and like, what will help us get there? And it felt really good to set some things that I can go through. And so it's nice now. Like, I have a really, one of the things that I'm working on is building up a referral database for Brett, with some new people, because we've done a good job of like nourishing our current one and stuff. And so I was like, if I could talk to 10 new people a day, new agents that we don't know already, the numbers on what that would do for our business is outrageous. And so then it goes into like, okay, well, I know I have these errands that I run with Connor. And so I can call, well, like, if I preload phone numbers into a note on my phone, I can just tap the number, you know, and then I know who I called. I can go back at the end of the day, look at my call log, make notes, add people in, whatever. But it felt really good. Like, it feels like it's like a comforting thing, you know, like, okay, I have things I'm tracking. I can't get a lot done, but like, I can get these things that will I know for sure will produce this result.
Yeah. Yeah, it is comforting, man. Like I said, people get caught up in like, oh, I don't want to be in these chains, but data and numbers will set you free. So I'm a big fan.
They really will. And, you know, I think it was funny, Ashleigh, too. I meant to say this when you said entrepreneurs shift away from some of this because of the corporate world. But most corporations started out with somebody who was an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And then the harsh reality of it is, yes, there are successful people who just kind of run a business flippantly, however they want. And if you truly want it to grow and scale and be able to predict your success and not just hope one day you make money, there's a reason that this stuff is so common. This is the path is in the math, right? Like, this is the magic juice.
I've never heard that saying before, and I
Wait,
love
really?
it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay, so listen, the path is in the math is one of my favorite and most hated things because I'm not like a math person. And also, once I started thinking about it and like truly with business, like the path is in the math, with your personal wealth, the path is in the math, like all of it, I just started calling myself a mathlete because I was like, I can break anything in my life down to a mathematical pathway to success.
Yeah.
Can I always execute? No, not right now. And like, truly.
Yeah. I love that. I am stealing it. So the fourth one is one that I like. I've never heard of it before, but I like it because it's got stars and it's kind of simple. It's called the Moscow method. I'm not sure what the history is behind that. And certain letters are capitalized to stand for must have, should have, could have, won't have. And it's just a star ranking system, 4, 3, 2, 1. Your must haves are your mission critical. So if your mission in life is to give back to a certain charity, and you're like, I'm going to set this audacious goal of, let's say, $20,000 this year, I'm going to give back. So if something is mission critical to you being able to give back that money, it's a 4-star must have, say yes. Your 3 stars are your should have, which is, it's not necessarily something you need to do right this second, but it should get probably like in your calendar somewhere on your radar. Your could have drops to the say no. It's ranked 2 stars, and it's like, this would be nice, but it's not necessary to mission critical. And then the won't have is your 1 star. It's just get rid of it, eliminate it. There's no point in having it.
Okay, so 2 things. First of all, I just went back and I was definitely looking at the wrong picture. Of course, I know what AQRs are. I had skipped ahead to the next one,
Oh,
to the next photo on the graph. This one, to me, breaks down the Eisenhower model. This rating directly correlates with, like, the 4-star would be your urgent and important. Your 3-star, like, this to me makes those tangible and understandable.
yeah.
See, that's crazy because like when I look at this one, I'm like, oh yeah, this is totally exactly how I do it. Like even back at the beginning, right? Like explaining it.
Yep.
Like it's, do I need to do this? Like, should I do this? Can I do this? And then like, no, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, like that's really like the only options for me. But I don't think of them as urgent and important. I just think like everything is urgent.
Well, so,
Like,
and I,
but that's what I'm saying. Like, I think it'd be a good exercise for me to go through that, the way that you broke it down,
well, and I think
with
that
it. But yeah, I don't see the immediate reaction, the correlation like you do.
this
So, yeah.
determines like what you should do, and then I guess Eisenhower helps you prioritize maybe, and
Yeah.
this is like helping you decide what should even be on your plate to prioritize.
Yeah. That's what
The ranking
interesting.
system though is like so cool to me because I never thought about it in that way. I can look at a bunch of tasks and be like, okay, this is the most important. But having these like stars to rank it by is like, if you have to sit and compare them directly to each other and then put them in order, not like I can select the one,
Yeah.
but then to have to put them in an order is so fascinating. Like, do you do this, Ashley? Because that's really fascinating to me.
So what I really like about this whole, there's these 6 different methods, is that to me, there's like your natural state, which like Biz is saying, the Moscow method is kind of her natural state. I really gravitate highly to the OKRs. Katie's really more naturally in the Eisenhower state. But to me, I'm like, you know what I should be doing is at the beginning of the year or at my intervals where I'm checking in on business planning, I should be taking my business plan through all 6 of these and my activities through all 6 of these. So if I'm like, okay,
Yes.
according to the Pareto principle, my top 20% is XYZ. Well, now I'm going to take it through Eisenhower and say, if my top 20% activities are these, which ones are the most urgent and important that I need to always be addressing? And do those further my OKRs? And if I looked at them through the Moscow method lens, do they all pass 4 and 3 stars? I think it's a really granular way to look at, are you actually focusing on the right activities?
This also comes to mind for me with you with your ideas. of if
Mhm.
you already have your actions prioritized with like a 3 and 4 star, every time you have an idea, if you rank it, if you're directly ranking it below something else, it's like, to me, it's just that like side by side comparison would
Yeah.
probably be like, okay, yes, I can move forward with this, or okay, no, I need to table it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do this like every single morning when I am deciding on my day. Like if I don't have appointments, I am constantly, and I bucket them, and I do it mentally. Like, and so all of my trackers and everything are designed and color coded around my mental buckets, so I can see stuff at a glance at how much there is. But I mean, it's the only way to manage a lot of decisions at one time.
Yep.
I think is to think in that type of phrasing. And that's
Yeah.
why I do it that way.
Well, and that's what
Yeah.
Katie mentioned decision fatigue towards the beginning of this episode, and I was thinking about this. Like, this is a lot, and if you're doing this every day, you're gonna be exhausted just by how many decisions you made. And that is again why I like that idea of when you're doing your business planning check-ins, that's the time to really evaluate things. And that might help you with the idea of should I say yes to something? It's like I am currently at month 3. I'm not reevaluating business planning until month 6. I'm committed to those 6 months. And so if somebody's brought like, hey, it'd be really cool if you did this, I'm going to write it on like my business planning sheet or something to revisit so that I'm not constantly making decisions. I think that would help me a ton.
Well, and the other thing there too is like if you keep these, like let's use the rankings, right? If you keep the rankings and you have stuff, just because something is a 2 right now doesn't mean it always is. It just means right now.
Yeah.
That's the reality of it. Then let's say like Ashleigh, you hit the goals that you have and you're able to get more leverage. All of a sudden those 2s can be moved up to a 4 because you have capacity for them. And so this to me is a really great way of tabling something without feeling like you're losing an idea or like
Yeah.
disappointed that you don't get to bring it to fruition. It's just when you get to the point that you have leverage, you already naturally know what's going to come and take up that space, right? You know the next steps.
Yeah. Okay. 5 and 6 are the ones I'm the least familiar with. Number 5 is called the RICE scoring model. So RICE stands for research, impact, confidence, and effort. And I like this because I think it's probably the one that would help me the most. It is supposed to help prioritize projects based on quantifiable data to make objective decisions. I get emotionally tied to my ideas because a lot of the times I'm like, I know that would work. I know it would be a good idea, but like, I am not emotionally tied to the effort it would take to make this work. So having some sort of scoring model that would really take the decision out of the emotion and into the objective, I really like.
So this is the one that I said I had never seen before, ever. And I like it because it uses words like reach and impact. And these are a lot of things that are really important to me.
Yeah.
I especially like this one because it calls out effort. And a lot of time we think about like what steps we might have to take in order to make something happen or how much time it might take, but we don't think about the effort. And I don't mean this to sound like, oh, I'm lazy, I don't want to work. And also, when we are looking at something, it is really important to evaluate truly in a realistic fashion how much effort it will take to get the ball rolling, to maintain it, to grow it. And so I like that it uses that different word because I think that can put you in a different mindset, right? And then it's not only of yourself, it's when you're like planning something that people on your team are going to have to take on. It's not just another task. Like what effort will they have to put forth in order to bring this to fruition?
I have a theory on why we don't know this one and it's not familiar to us.
Ooh.
And it's because we are conquering or recently conquered our imposter syndrome. Because this one to me is like it sounds like the most ego driven, even though it's not, because it talks about mission spreading and impact to me. And like the safe to be seen affirmation, that's something that you are passionate about can also be a shared passion with others, and overcoming that before you even consider whether or not that's a decision to make.
Yeah.
If impact is something like that to really put in weight, because at least for me, it's almost like I have to force myself to do it blindly, like lie to myself. And like, that's why it's like really interesting, Katie, because like, you know, you were drawing the similarities between us earlier in data and how it excites us and whatever. And data like calms me when I am feeling anxious. I don't necessarily go to it to get excited about stuff. And like with this podcast, it's constantly like pushing myself off a ledge. And I still to this day cannot think about the fact that this is out there forever and ever. Amen. And so anytime you talk about impact, like I can't think of anything but this in my life, because this is why I do it. Right.
See, and this is so funny to me, because you were talking about how like you make most of your decisions based on like what you need, and then also what your family needs. And while I think at the heart of it, all of us are doing what we do for our families, right? Like this one to me resonates, because every decision, like, okay, how do I say this without sounding like it's egotistical? I am a loud person, and I, by nature, whatever I do, I link arms with people, and I am like an eternal hype woman, cheerleader, whatever, and I want people doing it with me. So I do think about, I just assume that whatever I do, people are going to know about it. And so then I have to think about what the impact is, right? Because I live a loud life in front of people. And I don't mean that like, oh, I'm so important, people know what I'm doing.
No, but I'm very quiet. Like,
I'm
very reserved. Yeah.
You're just going to like do your thing and do it for you. And I love that. And I am louder about all of the things that I do or want to do or whatever.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to post on Facebook. Like I have to force, that's one of those little anthill pebbles that I make myself do, because it's hard. I think I found that later. Like I want to recluse more, but I know it's not good. I don't know why. I don't know. It's a season. But yeah, no, I just, so anyway, it was just interesting the fact of drawing with the podcast. Like, it's like, I don't want to know. I love seeing it with you, but I don't have that like pull to like check the data. And it's weird, because I like didn't even consider it. But I'm still holding out for that person in Antarctica, by the way. I'm still looking.
We'll get there.
Everybody's hitting me up that they just got back. And I'm like, dude, do you not read instructions? Are you going or currently there?
Why do you know so many people who go to Antarctica?
Dude, I don't know, man. My Facebook feed is my friends that I have, because I don't accept everyone. And then it's really kind of just hang on for your life. And I also realized this, where you talk about just saying no, or like, how do you say no to stuff? I realized in this conversation too, that I don't say no a lot of times. Like I'm always the one that gets broken up with, or like unfriended, or whatever in my life. Like I really struggle with knowing when to say when, and like, no, this is gonna work. And like pushing.
Yeah.
But like my Facebook is a treasure trove, because if you are still there after 15 years, however fuck long it's been, like 20 years, oh my God, what? If you're still hanging on, there's some weird shit. And by weird shit, I mean weird people that like obviously love me and I love you. So
yeah.
Anyway, so I know a lot of people in Antarctica.
Well, it's funny because the podcast is what made me think about how we subconsciously use the Rice scoring model, because we said, hey, we should do this. And we started with what, like, you know, we could reach a lot of people because there are so many people that are craving connection, and it would be very impactful for them as well as for us. And we were confident. I don't know that any of us stopped to be like, I don't know if our conversations could be helpful.
I was confident in y'all.
I think that was the linking arms. Yeah. Like I was like, you know, my voice by myself, I probably wouldn't have been like, I should do this type of podcast. But our dynamic was what the confidence was in. And then the effort, we're like, we don't know. We've never done a podcast, but it can't be that hard.
Yeah. See, but that kind of goes back to what I was talking about, though, my theory about like the imposter syndrome piece of it. It's that like we can't think about it from ourselves from that perspective.
Yeah.
We should, man. I'm going to start using that language with my kid now.
I don't know
Like,
though.
what
Like I
impact?
haven't met a stage I don't like. So like that's tough
What?
for me. I said I haven't met a stage I don't like or a
Oh.
microphone. So like I don't know. It's tough for me. But
See,
yeah, you should use that with Liv. Just make her like assume that her actions will have an impact on other people and then
because they
make it a good
will.
one.
I mean, all your actions will.
I
Yeah.
know, but to be conscious and considerate of that.
Yep.
Like, oh, yay.
Yay. Okay, the last one is my least favorite. It's called
Save the worst for last.
Save the worst for last, y'all. We're gonna close out on a low note.
Yeah.
I think it's pronounced the Kano method, and the graph on this infographic was, I was like, I don't even understand it, so I actually had to go and Google it. The Kano model, a theory for product development and customer satisfaction, and was developed in the 1980s by Noriaki Kano. And it classifies the customer preference. So basically, it's a lot more based on product development. So I just don't know that it's that. I think that's why I'm like, I just don't love it. And it's defining it into must be, which is an essential for basic satisfaction, which is basically like, it's so bare minimum. It's not even really all that helpful. There's performance, which is like, it's a pretty steady way up. You know, it does pretty well. And then there's attractive, which is surprise with delight. And that's the hockey stick model that it's showing there. So when you are implementing something, if you want it to have that hockey stick model, you want to be in the attractive category, which is surprise with delight. And so that I'm like, you know, I guess could apply to like in real estate if your service is just bare minimum, it's not enough today. And if it's pretty good with a few extras, then, you know, it'll get you by. It'll have some steady growth. It'll be fine. But if you can get yourself to where the service you provide has a surprise with delight, that's where you get the exponential growth.
So I think that this one, you don't like it as much because the rest of them are evaluating your own thought processes. And this one is judging the reactions of others. But I would argue that you actually do use this a lot on social media engagement and responses. And this seems like exactly the kind of, this is a graph form of the analytics that you study.
What a great point.
And even more so, Ashleigh, when I was drilling down on you earlier about your decision-making process, your real estate career portion, like entrepreneur business, is your must do right now.
Oh.
Literally. And like you could bucket each of your businesses and your energies, like I was talking about, like all of those things exactly into this. And so like you may not like this model, but you also have dissonance against it at like a deep level because you are doing it.
I don't like it because it's too accurate.
Yeah. Like it's what's so hurt you? This Kano model. Kano model. Whatever.
Kano maybe sounds more correct. That is so funny.
I don't know.
You guys are so smart.
Yeah. But like literally, like, but it does make sense what you were talking about too, in like a more like practical way, but like on a big picture scale, like you do this.
Well,
like,
and I think
all
it's
the
like,
time.
if you call it product development, then like, what's your product? For you, there's social media, right? But then also like your real estate service is a product. So it's your product development. Like this, I mean, for you too, this falls into that. I think it's not as, it's not necessarily as digestible and like a personally ranking what's important to me or what I can handle right now. It's truly just evaluating the response from other people.
Which I guess is important.
if you need customers in order to
I suppose I'm supposed to care.
Ashleigh's like, fuck this model, I'm gonna do what I want.
And you're gonna like it.
You gotta get in or get out. I don't give a fuck.
Ashleigh's gonna look at what reels perform the worst and just do more of them.
I'm like, no, that was a good idea, damn it. Which is kind of true. I just did that with one that I really was like, I think that should have performed better. I'm gonna do it again.
You should totally make a series of just finding obscure
Oh, that's funny.
Oh man. Yeah. So okay. Well, I don't know that I definitely feel like I'm gonna take away from this for sure Katie's exercise there. I do want to have that sidebar conversation.
Yeah.
And I do want to also with my goals, I'm gonna take that list and organize it.
Yeah. I love that.
And I also think it became apparent in this conversation. I think the value layering is really important in how that laces through all of it. So I'm gonna also make value buckets that are personal and
Ooh.
cross
Yeah.
list them. But yeah, and like I'm also gonna commit to actually taking the time and sitting down and talking to myself about this
I know.
instead of just turning my brain off, because I also know that I want to enjoy spending time alone
Yeah.
more.
Well, it's like Sarah Reynolds talks about how she realized at some point that she wasn't calendaring white space for thinking. And sometimes, like, this might be what you need to think through. And it sounded silly to me at first to just be like, I'm just going to sit down at my computer and think. And I don't know what I'm going to think about. And now I'm getting to the point where I'm like, no, I get it now. Like, there's a lot to try. It's like a spider web of things. And so sometimes you just have to sit and think and sit through things like this and digest.
Yeah. I'm excited about it.
Yeah.
So I'm excited that. So yeah, I learned something today. Thank you.
Good.
Thank you for bringing this to my attention.
I definitely learned
Thank
something
you.
today. I am excited. I think I'm going to. Okay, no, bad Ashleigh. I'm committed to 6 months. It's April. We have 2 months left before we're halfway through the year. So I will be revisiting my business plan in June, and I'm going to take it through these and cross-reference. I probably won't do all 6 because it's just a little bit much, but I think I'll stick with the Pareto principle because it's just such a solid one. Revisiting the OKRs and then the Moscow method. I think those are the 3 that I'm gonna like really
Good for you.
through.
Good for you.
I really like that idea. It's really timely for me too. Like I said, I accidentally am making a decision and kind of I know what's coming up for us in the next few months. And so this is really, really helpful to not just have the system that I develop, but know that there are actual models. And I think that there's also something really cool about having a few. And so running it through one, then running it through another and making sure that it's consistent. And then the other cool part of this is like if you present the models and the plan, you can have somebody else take a look at it. Because again, I know I get excited about things. And so I could unfairly rank something because it seems more fun. But I can have, like my board of directors look at it and make sure that my business plan using these models aligns with my mission and my goals.
Totally. I love that. We should do a We're Your Friends Now business planning check-in in June.
Love it.
So this has been really helpful. I like taking the time to put words and models and systems to a lot of the things that we're doing subconsciously because it creates a lot more order and organization. And it helps me trust myself more. Like I'm not just winging something. There's models backing me up.
Yes, it's also so helpful because like we said, at times when we don't have much capacity, I'm not just like, okay, I hope I'm able to think through this or like, count on my brain to come through. Nope, there's literally a model. I just follow it.
Yep.
And I know that I know it's going to align with what I would think if I was at max capability here,
Yeah.
Scientific validation. Yeah.
PEMDAS for goals.
PEMDAS for business planning. Girlies.
Math 1, 2, 3 mathletes.
Well, I love you guys so much. Thank you for entertaining this. And we'll drop this infographic in the We're Your Friends Now Facebook group. So if you are interested in seeing what we've actually been looking at while we talk through this, you can head on over and join our group and you'll see it there yourself.
I want everybody to draw their own examples of what they think these models look like.
Yes, please.
Oh my God. We should totally play that game.
That would be so fun. See how well we
Okay, the next late night episode.
Yeah.
So sweet. Well, hey, don't forget to leave us a 5-star review so other people can find us that need this podcast. We know that we've been able to help one another, and we're so grateful to our community that is growing every day. Invite a friend to listen to us, and go ahead and subscribe while you're at it. Thanks, guys. See you next week.
Boop, 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 boop.